You're late. Sorry, Arthur said nervously. I didn't know the time had been changed. That is not the court's fault. Michelle's legal representative sneered. We had called you this morning. Take your seat. Arthur dropped his gaze to the table waiting for him. His footsteps echoed loudly as he walked across the stone floor. When he sat gingerly on the edge of the chair, he felt desperately alone because I wasn't there. He couldn't fight his own battles without his attorney. I had advised leaving the boys with a neighbor, deeming it unnecessary to have the boys at the pre-trial. Feeling rather sick, he looked up at the people seated at the bench above. The jurors were staring down their noses at him. Some with very austere expressions, others looks of frank curiosity. The judge was an Italian man with a sneer on his face as if he had smelled something rotten in the room. Whatever, bastardo, Judge Romano said. The accused being present, finally, let us begin. Arthur feared his heart would beat out of his chest. I still wasn't there yet to start the trial. He felt so frustrated that he could scream. He swallowed deeply in fear. What if I never showed up? He couldn't defend himself, and there was no time to get a new attorney. If he didn't have one, he would seem unfit as a parent because he would be seen as irresponsible. Would the court just take the boys without a trial? He didn't know. The fear was starting to make his heart beat faster. Should he really have just blindly trusted me? He didn't want to think that it was the money that made it so that I didn't show up. Disciplinary hearing of the 12th of the month, Judge Romano said. Into the custody battle of Arthur Kirkland, Francis Bonifoy, and Michelle Bonifoy. The prosecutor is Nathan, and for the defense, Kita Kude, said a quiet voice from behind Arthur. The Brit had turned his head so fast, he cricked his neck. The relief was plain on his face as the nose or his eyebrows. I smiled gently at him. I strode across the floor, wearing a white blouse with a black tie and black pants, and on my feet, black shining flats. I wore a perfectly calm expression. All eyes were on me now as I walked in. It was one thing for the defense to be late, but it was another for the witness of the for the defense to be late. Some jurors looked annoyed, others slightly frightened. Two elderly women in the back row, however, raised their hands and waved in welcome. I then stood by Arthur. The jurors jumped in surprise when I slammed my shiny and most important looking black briefcase on top of the table. Before we begin, I would like everyone present in this room to swear that in the duration of this court, they will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Everyone did so, including myself, Arthur, Michelle, and her attorney. It was then that Arthur noticed Francis wasn't here. Why wasn't the frog here? He wanted his son back just as much as Michelle did, though Francis only wanted Matthew back. That much Arthur knew, so why wasn't he there to defend his stance on the idea? It didn't bode well with the Brit. Nervously, he looked at me. Why was I late? What had held me up? I just sat down at the table next to Arthur. My case was now laid down on the table. Arthur eyed it in confusion. I swatted his hand away when he tried to open it. I was about to let him see what was I wasn't about to let him see what was inside just yet. Now then, I said, let's begin. Arthur was called to the stand to defend himself. I would question him, and then the other attorney would question him. We had practiced this. You had played the defense, and I played the prosecuting attorney. We made it so that he would be questioned back with any question he was asked about, even ones he really would rather not talk about. He was just to pretend that he was talking to me, that I was the one asking the questions. I was to, he was to look at me in the eye and tell me, only me, that what he had been asked by anyone in the room. We also worked on his anger. He wouldn't burst out in rage over things brought up. Otherwise, he would get thrown from the courtroom. I smiled at him kindly. Mr. Kirkland, 6 years ago, your wife left you, correct? I asked. Yes. And she waits until now to stake a claim in the lives of the sons she walked out on. The jurors were now interested in what they had to say about it. Mothers never waited so long to finally try to take back their children. It was normally within the year that they tried to take their children back because that was normally when divorces came through. This made Michelle look suspicious for waiting just so long in order to take her sons back, especially since she claimed she loved them so much and wept every day without them. There had to be a reason why she was trying to take the kids back now, especially so late into their lives. It caught my attention. I wanted the court to find it worrisome as well. They had to take note of it if it was the last thing I did. Go on, Arthur. Just tell the court your daily routine, I pressed. Arthur nodded in agreement. This was one of the questions I had practiced with him. It made sense that he would be able to answer it. I wanted to paint him as a good parent. It wasn't too hard to do. I had listened to him time and time again. He was a good person. It didn't take an attorney to bring that out of him. Sure, when he was a kid, he had a rough and wild face, but that was what it was, a phase. He grew out of it. He gained responsibilities, little lives depending on him to take care of them. You had stepped in, but only recently. The boys were turning 7 soon, and their true mother just decided to step in now. There had to be some ulterior motive. I certainly didn't like it. I would like to make the court see it my way too. I get up at 7. I wake the boys, get them ready for school. I send them to World Academy. A private school, I remarked. Well, yes, Arthur said. He was uncomfortably aware of some of the jurors' disbelieving expressions. I nodded regardless of the fact. Arthur sacrificed and went without for those sons of his. I didn't have any idea how he could possibly make it through each month, judging by his finances. But it turned out it was because he put his boys before himself often. He was lucky you came in when you did, offering to help and taking care of the two children who weren't yours. You saved him in babysitting by doing it for yourself and convincing friends to do. Though with faces like theirs, it wasn't hard to say no. Poor parents like him with children in private schools were rare. But really, Arthur was doing all he could in order to obtain a better future for his sons, even if it meant driving himself into a hole. Please continue, I requested. After that, I go to classes and attend lectures. Arthur said, I glanced over my shoulder to look at the jurors. The two old ladies in the back row looked impressed. Those two old women loved jury duty when they had it. I had seen them before once or twice, never discussing my cases, but I did discuss weather with them. A few of my friends who worked at the library, they visited often, and a few other things like that. I took a deep breath. Arthur was waiting for his next question, so I had to keep us going along rather smoothly. Things were going well so far, but that could change if there was just one thing that Arthur failed to mention to me, like drunken pictures, threatening phone calls, and anything of that sort. But you had done a good job of keeping him on the straight and narrow path. I could feel his ex wife's eyes boring into my back. No wonder he divorced her. So, you're going to school? I asked. Yes. Being a parent and going to college was hard. Plus, Arthur worked too, so it made it to provide it for his boys. Because he was managing to do it, it spoke volumes of the type of person that he was. I resisted the temptation to smirk because I knew this was good for Arthur. He was speaking with more confidence. I was glad for him. He had you and his boys waiting for him at home. He might as well as propose to you soon. You were good for him. You had known him for nearly a year, and I was painfully aware of what he thought of you. It was present in his eyes when he looked at you, when he smiled, when he spoke to you. You had found a ringer, and I couldn't be any happier for you. Just, I just needed to coax him into admitting it too. Why? I helped Michelle pay for her schooling when she and I were together. Our plan was for one of us to support the family while the other attended school. Once she was done, I was supposed to go. And she left you before that could happen, yes? Arthur nodded slowly. I heard a soft scoff. I took a deep breath to calm myself and keep from turning around to confront the woman. Romano may have been a judge that was friends with me, but he knew where to draw the line between profession and friendship. He could and would kick me out of the courtroom if I disrespected his silent and unspoken rules. But with her behavior, it spoke about Michelle's character. She had been using him to go to school, cheated, and had left the kids, one who wasn't even truly Arthur's, with her husband. I couldn't even imagine the hurt that Arthur felt but he overcame it. He adopted the boy he should have hated because Matthew was the evidence of his wife's betrayal. But Arthur kept him, loved him, cherished him, and treated him like his own. Objection! Michelle's lawyer cried. Your Honor, he works at a bar. We have photographic evidence of him drinking and partying. He's lying. I want to see evidence, Judge Romano requested. If looks could kill, my glare would have sent that smug attorney of Michelle's into the floor. The man walked across the floor and handed Romano a huge package of photos. Arthur paled. Worriedly, he sent a glance in my direction. I remained stony faced, waiting for the Italian's reaction to what the evidence had to offer. This could make or break my defense. But hopefully, Arthur told me everything he had to offer. Silently, Judge Romano looked over the picture. The scowl on his face grew more defined. Suddenly, he tossed the pictures over his shoulder. Papers and pictures fluttered around him and hit the floor. Gasps escaped the juror's mouth. The look of pure outrage on Michelle's face grew. Overruled, Romano said. These are dated 6 years ago. Those who weren't even worth wiping my nose on, let alone as evidence. I cleared my throat, trying my best not to laugh. That would be unprofessional of me. A lawyer who'd laughed at the judge's antics during court was not worth their grain and salt. But I managed it. Arthur looked like he was struggling too, so I sent him a stern look. He was new to the way of the courts, and, well, it was his wife, so it wasn't too terrible. Lots of husbands laughed at their exes when they tried to bring up terrible allegations. Well, the wives laughed at the husbands too, but it really depended on the situation's context. It was much better to laugh in the safety of our home when the court wasn't watching because they could judge you for laughing. People were so hypocritical. A few jurors were laughing. As I was saying, Arthur, what do you do after classes? I asked. I work at the cafe, and after that, I pick up the boys from school. A friend of mine watches the boys for me on the weekdays so I can work my shift at the bar. Objection, Your Honor. Finish that sentence and I'll have you expelled from my court, Judge Romano threatened. Because if you don't let this man speak a few sentences, we'll be here all day. Michelle's lawyer sat down. He looked completely dumbfounded. I grinned. It was a minor victory, but one to be relished, I suppose. The man wouldn't want to keep interrupting out of fear that Michelle wouldn't pay him in the end if he was expelled. And to think I was doing this without being paid, this chump only cared about the money. So it goes, I suppose. Arthur looked up at me, waiting for my next question, patiently. Michelle's face went purple, and her fury at being outwitted by the attorney rendered her speechless. I smiled pleasantly as I faced Arthur again. Now, can you tell me about time skip? I sighed at the end of the day. I was tired. The pre-trial was done. The harder part came next. The actual court date, however, there was a smile on Arthur's face and he felt light as a balloon, knowing that he had finished the first part of his task. However, we both frowned when there was a certain Frenchman walking our way. He had been waiting in the shadows, only appearing after his wife was gone. He stopped in front of Arthur and I. I frowned and looked to the Brit. The Englishman looked like he was about ready to swing a punch, so I stepped between them. I did not want assault charges. It could ruin the case and have the boys taken away. Can I help you? I asked. A remorseful smile crossed Francis's lips. It struck me odd, but it struck Arthur as annoying. He glowered at the Frenchman, wishing that I would step out of the way so he could pound the other blonde's face in. Perhaps I should just suggest anger management or at least kickboxing or something to do with that pent up aggression. He could really hurt someone if he continued on the way he did. On second thought, I should mention it to you. You would have a better chance at convincing him to do something that he felt that he didn't need to or didn't want to do. Yeah, that was much better plan than giving him than having him yell at me. No, but I can help you. Now, why on earth would that you do that, frog? Arthur spat. I frowned. This was unusual. Why would Francis offer to help the man he was trying to take the children from? Something didn't add up. The math for it was off. Arthur was seething now. His breathing had gotten heavier. His eyes had narrowed. His hands were fists at his side. That certainly wasn't good. He was really about ready to jump Francis. I shook my head. He was troublesome and he didn't pay well with others. Play well with others. No wonder he had such a bad record with this man. This was his former best friend or enemy who had turned out to help his wife cheat on him. I wouldn't have been too kind to the man either. Michelle and I have split up 4 years ago. You were right, Mon Lapine. She only put my name on the papers. I told you she was marrying you for the money. Don't come crying to me, you cheesy surrender monkey. Arthur, let's hear him out, I cried. I had to get more information. It could be vital to the case. Arthur's grudge was not going to stop me from listening. I was working for Arthur, for his best interests. I had to follow any lead, anything that someone offered me in order to truly win the case. We may have already done well with the pre-trial, but things normally got nasty after that. Anything that could be used against the defendant would be used against them. Any dark secret, any skeleton in the closet, even things you did 10 years ago, could be used just to show how horrible of a person you are, or how awful you have been in the past. There was very rarely a clean divorce and custody battle anymore, unless one parent was deemed far too dangerous or incapable of being a parent at all. No, I don't want to, Arthur shouted. She's going to try to take the boys. You have to get home as fast as you can. That made Arthur freeze. His innards went cold at the very thought of what Francis was suggesting. He slowly turned to look at the Frenchman, fear obvious in his eyes. His sons came first in his life. That was the entire reason he had come to court in the first place. He was trying to keep his boys. If Michelle was just going to take them anyways, it was technically kidnapping because she had put his name on his papers. Francis didn't want his name associated with his ex wife. He wanted to warn Arthur because he wanted his son as safe as Arthur wanted the boys safe. So they had reached a common goal, a common interest, the safety of the children. She, she what? She's heading to your home right now. You have to stop her. Arthur, let's go, I cried. So, hello guys. I hope you enjoyed this part 4 of Daddy Dearest. Um, if you noticed the perspective or the point of view, POV of this um, entire fanfic is the author's, not mine. I did not write this story, but I am one of the ones who enjoy English anyway. Um, yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to my voice after how many months now? 3, 4, 5? Sorry about that, by the way. College was a bitch. So, anyways, leave a like, subscribe, and enjoy your day. Thank you for watching.